Welcome to Life and Faith from the Centre for Public Christianity. I'm Justine Toe.
And I'm Simon Smart.
Well, sometimes you come across stories that make you really excited to be alive, and I want to share one of those with you today. It's not just about being excited about being alive, but it's about being excited about the world and what's possible within it, and particularly the way that people are always finding new and innovative ways to develop the world and be creative within it. So the story that we're going to tell today is one of those for me. But before we get into it, I wonder what comes to mind when you hear this. So Simon, what kind of associations spring to mind?
That's beautiful, isn't it? I'm struck when I hear that sort of thing by how interesting it is that human beings can produce something so extraordinary. Music is just one example of that, but it's a good one. It seems to be almost otherworldly and something beyond not just the person who wrote the music, the person playing it and so on. It's kind of an amazing part of being human.
Yeah, well, it's funny you should mention things about music, resonating with you in terms of an otherworldly or suggesting something otherworldly, because when we later hear from Rebecca Irwin, who was just playing that beautiful piece of music, she says things like that as well. I should mention that Rebecca Irwin plays on a regular basis with the Australian Opera and Ballet Orchestra. Now, I'm thinking also for those of us, when we listen to Rebecca play, you probably think about, music obviously, but the violin, maybe also the fine arts, culture, the finer things in life, maybe even the Sydney Opera House, which is where Rebecca plays. However, I'm wondering as well if this piece of music also makes you think of the tree that was used to make the instrument that would then go on to make these beautiful sounds. Probably not, but I hope you will think of that after you hear about the craft involved in picking musical trees. I came across this story a couple of weeks ago. It appeared on the BBC. In Switzerland, there's the Réseau forest, if I've said that right.
That sounded good to me, Justin.
And in that forest, spruce trees grow in abundance, and spruce are actually used to make violins. But in order to make a violin, it's not a matter of cutting down any old tree. There's a real craft to finding the perfect musical wood. In the story, the interviewer talks to skilled tree pickers who have to take into account a variety of factors. We're talking the age of the tree, the number of its branches, because if you have too many branches, this means knots in the wood, and those knots will spoil the resonance. It turns out that even the position of the moon is a factor you need to take into account, because just as the moon affects the tides of the earth, apparently it also draws the sap out of the tree. And if you get too much dampness in the wood, that's going to affect the sort of music that results.
That's unbelievable. The cumulative knowledge of humanity is just extraordinary sometimes, isn't it? But did you ever find out how this happens? How does the tree picker know, for instance, the right time to pick the tree, taking into account all those things like the moon?
Yeah, I don't know. I imagine watching someone who's a skilled tree picker work is almost like seeing something mystical happen. It's like magic in that sense. But, the story is this incredible reminder of not only how beautiful and rich the world is, but how creative humans are. You have to wonder, and you've already mentioned this, that, how many generations of skilled tree pickers has it taken to arrive at this kind of knowledge? You have to think about, all the people who experimented with different kinds of trees, different techniques. When did they arrive at the perfect formula? And perhaps are they still perfecting it?
Yeah, if you're listening to that sort of music or viewing art, I guess, there's a sense in which you're not just taking in that artwork, but you're experiencing the backstory of everything that led to its creation, even if you're not aware of that background. And it's a reminder, as you say, Justine, of incredible human creativity.
Yeah, I really wanted to bring up this story today because I shared this story with a friend of mine who I knew would really love it. But what's really funny is that where I look at this story and say, this sort of beauty and creativity that you find in the world is a good indication of the existence of a creative God, she actually arrives at the opposite conclusion. Faced with the same story and having a real response to it, she comes to the conclusion there is no God, and all this tremendous beauty around us is all just an incredible coincidence. You know, it's all random, and its beauty arrives precisely because it is so random and there is no God. So it's hilarious how you can have the same story, two wildly different conclusions.
Yeah, you do get that a bit, access to the same information, different conclusions. And it becomes really a test of, or an illustration of, a different worldview, meaning what is at base the things that you believe about the nature of reality and the nature of the world. Is this craft of producing violins and the craft in learning to play the musical instrument just one part of an incredible coincidence, or is there more going on than that, more to it than that? Those of us who believe in God obviously think there's a lot more going on.
Well, I think that even if people today say that everything, you know, the beauty of the world, human creativity, if they believe that all of this is a happy accident, I don't think any of us really live like that. And I wonder, you know, as an artist, you know, I doubt they would think, oh, you know, all of this is just random. This is actually me thinking through what I'm doing and all the rest of that. And, you know, I think of someone like Jamie Oliver. This is kind of left of field, but...
No, I love Jamie Oliver.
Well, I remember an interview with him where he was saying that he was a pretty poor student. He had a lot of trouble at school, but he always loved food. And, you know, you look at him now, he's the king of an empire, food empire, really. And even when you watch his 15-minute meals, you see the absolute joy he has in what he does. You know, and he's creative, he's kind of fun, he's in his element, basically. I would say that his art, I think he's an artist, really. I think that his art, his life, his work doesn't really boil down to this magnificent accident. You know, I think he's born to cook. You know, in that cooking, he comes into his own. I don't think he looks at his life as though it's just an accident. I think he really feels a sense of connection with what he's doing.
Let's ask the artist among us. You've heard her play. Now listen to what she had to say, Rebecca Irwin, about human creativity and as it relates to her music.
Thanks for joining us on the program, Rebecca.
It's my pleasure.
Now, what have you been playing for us just now?
Oh, that's the Bach Adagio from his G minor violin sonata.
Well, he was very religious, very
was,
Christian.
yeah.
And do you think that that's affected his music?
Bach is different in some sense that not only his music speaks for him, but also one of his manuscripts in the beginning of it says "In the name of Jesus" in these initials, and at the end of the script, his manuscript always have something like "To God be the glory." Something like that.
Yeah.
So every single one.
So he's dedicating, in some senses, his music. Yeah.
Absolutely.
As an act of worship. Do you have the same feeling about playing the violin? In a way, is it an act of worship?
I'm afraid I never thought about that, but every part of our life is an act of worship and service to God. And music is so much part of me. Everything beautiful leads us back to God. And it's so much beauty in music. And also, to me, music is the language of the soul, human soul, and it touched really the innermost of us and our desire. And sometimes when it's in the sublime moments, I just think I can glimpse a bit of heaven. And even our work, we play a lot of different styles of repertoires, and like, you know, romantic, modern, contemporary. And it's great fun, but sometimes you just need to have that peace to come back to the root. So Bach is technically, it's very difficult to play well. So personally, it brings that inner peace as well to you. And then when you play, and the music, the style is so pure.
So you play for the Australian Opera and Ballet Orchestra.
That's correct.
And I imagine the kind of music that you're exposed to it's like the full range of the human experience, right? Like there's love, there's despair, there's tragedy.
Yes.
What's it like to play the kind of music that goes along with that? What does it teach you about humans?
It's just so much drama. It's like life, but it's exaggerated. Live on stage. And opera is full of lust and murder and blood and, a good opera. But the thing is, it really reflects the human brokenness and human struggles. But if you look at it, love is God, so we worship. But actually, it's the human nature, the human desire to find the true love. To me, I realize, again, being reminded every time that only God have that unconditional love for us.
Now, Rebecca, you mentioned that Bach can be like a detox for musicians.
Yes.
Do you feel that it can provide a way of expressing yourself?
Oh, absolutely. And I think more than any other composers, Bach provide that freedom, that have so much room for different interpretations. And there's a huge argument or different schools about how to interpret it. There's have to be a Baroque style, or the other people play it very romantically. And to me, the most important task you do is to give that conviction at how you interpret it, how you feel. It's you, when I played it, it's Rebecca. Under different circumstances, when have different mood, I play the same movement, like just Adagio very differently. The last time I played it was in a funeral, so every time I played it since, it always makes me a bit teary. But before, I try to play a little bit more sort of relaxed, a bit more free. So it depends on the mood that I have. Yeah.
Well, that was violinist Rebecca Irwin. We're talking music, human creativity and matters of faith. I guess the issue here is if you adopt a naturalist understanding of the world, there's no God or gods, then it doesn't make sense to speak of purpose. And all of this, therefore, Jamie Oliver, music, the violin, tree pickers, they're just landing on a winning combination that produces wonderful results. But there can't be any meaning to it, and there's no ultimate design. It's all random.
It may be true, but as I said, we don't live that way. And it feels too convenient, really. This idea that there is so much in the world that suggests design and intention, but there is no design. I think it seems more logical that a theistic account of the world has a better explanation for all of this beauty and wonder, and especially our human ability to work with the natural world to produce incredible art, incredible culture.
So when you're saying theistic, you're talking about a worldview that includes God within it. To me, that makes so much more sense. But I guess you're not really saying that this is proof of anything to do with God.
No, I don't think so, but it does give us good reason to consider that God might exist. I think it just chimes, it's better with our experience of the world. There's this concept called the cultural mandate, right? It has its origins in Genesis 1 when humans are told that they need to fill and subdue the earth. And sometimes we can think that this means that the world is just there to satisfy human needs. We can use it up as we see fit. But this idea actually holds that it's our human responsibility to work with the world to bring forth its creative possibilities and, in a larger sense, we might say, to produce art and civilization.
And culture. And I guess what you mean is that people who know how to pick a tree to produce a really beautiful instrument are taking part in that cultural mandate.
Absolutely. And what's really beautiful about seeing the world in this way is that it adds all these extra dimensions to the stuff that we do. It's not meaningless. It's not just something that we do for money or for our own personal gain. It's something that we were born to do. And I think that's a really attractive, compelling sort of concept because it reveals something really profound about humans. This kind of work that we do is central to who we are as humans. And I think beyond that, it provides a really rich way to experience the world. The guy who wrote the article that I originally read on how tree pickers look for musical wood, he finishes by saying that he doesn't think he'll quite hear music in the same way again. He won't be able to hear a violin without thinking of the snow and the wind and the cuckoos and the bees and the violin trees. It's an incredible, rich tapestry of creation that he's tapping into. And if you believe in God, then you would agree with the poet Gerald Manley Hopkins, who says, "The world is charged with the grandeur of God."